Let's start from the beginning because before we get into the trailer, we need to talk about where Season 2 left us. And honestly, it left us in chaos. Complete and total chaos. Cammy is now completely alone at MTech's, holding onto a company that's slowly falling apart from the inside, clutching those mysterious documents that have no electronic record anywhere. Documents that Monty clearly hid for a reason. And now she has to figure out what those documents mean, what Monty was hiding, and how deep the problem actually goes. All without Tommy. All without Galino's support, and all without anyone she can genuinely trust by her side. That is an impossible position to be in, and Season 3 is going to make sure she feels every single bit of that pressure. And then there's Tommy. Tommy, who walked away from MTech's, went straight to Galino with nothing but confidence and a business idea, and somehow walked out of that meeting with $44 million and his own company. CTT is now a real thing. Cooper is the president, Tommy is the vice president, Rebecca is handling legal and operations, Nate is on the finances, Dale is running exploration, Boss is with the crew, Thomas is in charge of drilling, and Ariana is managing the office. This is not just a new company. This is Tommy's entire world under one roof. His son, his best friend, his family, all of it wrapped up in one business that could either make them or completely destroy them. And that right there is the kind of setup that makes for an absolutely electric season of television. Now, the trailer. Let's talk about the trailer because it did exactly what a good trailer is supposed to do. It gave us just enough to send us into a full spiral without actually giving anything away. The very first thing you notice is the tone. Season 1 had this gritty, oil-field energy mixed with family drama. Season 2 got darker, more political, more personal. But Season 3? From what the trailer is showing us, it looks like they are going full thriller. And I mean that in the best possible way. The visuals are intense, the music is heavy, and every single shot feels like it's carrying weight. You can feel that something massive is coming, and everyone on screen seems to know it too. Tommy's scenes in the trailer are something else entirely. We've always known him as the guy who figures things out, the guy who walks into impossible situations and somehow finds a way through. But in this trailer, he looks different. There's something behind his eyes that we haven't really seen before, a kind of tension that goes beyond just business stress. It looks like he's carrying something heavy, something that's pushing him toward a line he might not be able to come back from. And if you've followed Tommy's character from the very beginning, you know that when Tommy starts looking like that, things are about to get very serious very fast. Cooper's presence in the trailer is also worth paying attention to. CTT is his company on paper, he's the president, but we all know that Tommy is the one holding everything together behind the scenes. And the trailer seems to be setting up a situation where those two roles start to conflict with each other in ways neither of them expected. Cooper is young. He's ambitious, and he's been in his father's shadow his entire life. Now that he has his name on the door, he's going to want to make decisions. He's going to want to prove himself. And Tommy, being Tommy, is going to find that very difficult to just step back and let happen, especially when the stakes are this high and Galino's money is on the line. Speaking of Galino, the trailer gives us a few glimpses of him, and none of them are particularly comforting. This is a man who handed over $44 million with a smile, and we all know by now that nothing Galino does comes without strings attached. In the trailer, he's calm, he's collected, he's almost friendly, and that is somehow more terrifying than if he were angry. Because when Galino is calm, it usually means he already knows something you don't. It means he's already 3 steps ahead, and he's just waiting for you to catch up. Tommy knows this. Deep down, Tommy absolutely knows this, and watching him try to navigate that relationship while also keeping his company alive and his son protected is going to be one of the most compelling storylines of the entire season. And then there's Cammy. The trailer doesn't give us a lot of her, which is interesting in itself, but what we do see is striking. She's still at MTech's, still fighting, still holding on, but she looks exhausted in a way that goes beyond just being tired. She looks like someone who has been carrying the weight of a dead man's legacy for so long that she's starting to forget who she was before all of this started. Those documents she found are clearly going to be the center of her entire arc this season. Whatever Monty was hiding in those papers, whatever he didn't want anyone to find, it's going to come out this season. And based on the way the trailer is framing her storyline, it looks like the truth about Monty might be even more complicated and more painful than anyone was prepared for, because it's never simple with these characters. It never has been. Now let's get into what we think Season 3 is actually going to be about at its core, because trailers can only tell you so much. You have to read between the lines, you have to look at where every character ended up at the close of Season 2, and you have to ask yourself, where does this all go from here? And when you do that, when you really sit with everything that happened and everything that was set up, one thing becomes very clear. Season 3 is going to be about consequences. Every decision that was made in Season 2, every risk that was taken, every bridge that was burned, every alliance that was formed or broken, all of it is going to come back around this season. And nobody is going to be able to escape that. Not Tommy, not Cammy, not Cooper, not Galino, nobody. Let's start with CTT because that's where the biggest and most immediate consequences are going to land first. On the surface, CTT looks like a dream. You've got the right people, the right structure, the right funding, and the right energy behind it. But here's the thing about dreams that are built too fast on too much money from the wrong person. They have a way of turning into nightmares before you even realize what's happening. $44 million from Galino is not a gift. It was never a gift. That money is a leash, and Tommy is smart enough to know that, which means the moment CTT hits its first real obstacle, and it will hit one, the pressure from Galino is going to become impossible to ignore. We're talking about a man who has been in the oil business long enough to have seen every trick in the book. He didn't invest in CTT because he believes in Tommy's vision. He invested because he sees an opportunity, and when that opportunity stops serving him, he will pull that rug out from under all of them without a second thought. And Tommy knows this. That's what's going to keep him up at night this season. That's the thing that's going to push him into making decisions that might make us uncomfortable to watch, because when a man like Tommy feels cornered, he doesn't freeze. He moves, and not always in the direction you expect. Now let's talk about Cooper, because his arc in Season 3 might actually be the one that surprises people the most. We've watched Cooper grow throughout this show from someone who was kind of just there, kind of just Tommy's son, into someone who actually has a real presence and a real point of view. But being the president of a company is a completely different thing from anything he's done before. The title sounds good, it looks good on paper, but the reality of what that means is going to hit him hard and fast in Season 3. Because being in charge means being responsible. It means when things go wrong, and things are going to go wrong, the first person everyone looks at is the one whose name is at the top, and Cooper is going to have to figure out very quickly what kind of leader he actually wants to be, and whether he can hold that position under the kind of pressure that's coming. The dynamic between him and Tommy is going to be fascinating to watch this season because for the first time, they're not just father and son. They're business partners. They're colleagues. And those two relationships don't always coexist easily, especially when they start to disagree about how things should be handled. Tommy has spent his entire career working for other people, figuring out how to make things work within someone else's structure. Now he's building his own structure, but he's doing it with his son sitting at the head of the table, and that changes everything. Every instinct Tommy has is going to be to protect Cooper, to shield him from the worst of it, to handle the hard things so Cooper doesn't have to. But Cooper is not going to want that. He's going to want to be in the room. He's going to want to make the calls. And that tension, that push and pull between a father who wants to protect and a son who wants to prove himself is going to create some of the most emotionally charged moments of the entire season. And then there's Rebecca. We cannot sleep on Rebecca this season because her role as COO and Chief Counsel puts her in a position that nobody else in CTT occupies. She is the person who understands both the legal and the operational side of everything they're doing, which means she's going to be the first one to see when something isn't right. She's going to be the first one to understand the full picture of what Galino's involvement actually means legally and structurally. And the question is, what does she do with that information? Does she bring it to Tommy? Does she try to handle it herself? Does she protect the company? Or does she protect her family first? Because at the end of the day, this is a family business, and family businesses have a way of blurring every professional line that exists. Rebecca has always been one of the most grounded and clear-headed characters on this show, but Season 3 looks like it's going to test that in ways we haven't seen before. Let's also talk about Nate for a second, because Nate handling the finances of CTT is not a small thing. This is a man who has been by Tommy's side through everything, who chose loyalty over opportunity when Cammy tried to pull him away, who has seen this industry from every angle. But managing the finances of a brand new company, funded by someone like Galino, is a completely different kind of pressure. Every number has to be right. Every dollar has to be accounted for. Because if Galino ever has a reason to audit, to question, to dig into how his money is being spent, Nate is going to be the one sitting across the table trying to explain it. And that is not a position anyone would want to be in. Nate is loyal, Nate is capable, but loyalty and capability only take you so far when the numbers don't line up and a very powerful man wants answers. And while all of this is happening inside CTT, Cammy is out there on her own, still running MTechs, still holding on to those documents, still trying to understand what Monty was hiding and why. And Season 3 is going to force her and Tommy into each other's orbit again, because whatever is in those documents doesn't just affect Cammy, it affects the entire industry. It might even affect CTT directly. And when that happens, when those two worlds collide again, it's going to be explosive in a way that neither of them is going to be ready for. Let's talk about the thing that nobody wants to say out loud, but everybody is thinking. Season 3 has the potential to be the best season of Landman yet, and that is not something I say lightly. Because Season 1 was great, it set everything up perfectly. It introduced us to this world and these characters in a way that felt real and raw and completely unfiltered. And Season 2 took everything that was built and started pulling it apart piece by piece, testing every relationship, every loyalty, every belief these characters had about themselves and the people around them. But Season 3? Season 3 is where all of that setup and all of that destruction finally comes to a head. This is the season where we find out who these people actually are, when everything is on the line and there is no safety net underneath them. And based on everything the trailer is showing us, the writers know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly where this story needs to go, and they are not afraid to take it there. One of the biggest things Season 3 is going to have to deal with is the question of trust. And I don't just mean trust between characters, I mean trust as a theme, as a central idea that runs through every single storyline this season. Think about it. Tommy built CTT on the foundation of people he trusts completely. But Galino's money is sitting underneath all of it like a fault line, and fault lines have a way of cracking under pressure. Cooper trusts his father to have his back, but Tommy trusts his own instincts more than anything else, and those two things are eventually going to conflict. Rebecca trusts the law to be the thing that protects them, but the oil business has never really cared about what the law says when there's enough money involved. Nate trusts the numbers, but numbers can be manipulated by people who know what they're doing. And Cammy trusted Monty with everything she had, and now she's holding documents that are making her question whether she ever really knew him at all. That is the kind of thematic depth that elevates a show from just being good television to being something that actually stays with you. And Landman has always had that quality, that ability to make you feel like these are real people, dealing with real consequences in a world that doesn't care about being fair. Season 3 looks like it's going to lean into that harder than ever before. Now I want to talk about the oil field side of things, because sometimes in all the drama and the family dynamics and the business politics, we forget that at the end of the day, this is a show about the oil industry. And the oil industry is brutal. It is dangerous, it is unpredictable, and it does not discriminate between the people at the top of the food chain and the people working on the ground. Dale is running exploration for CTT, and that is one of the most high-stakes roles in the entire operation. Because exploration means going into territory that hasn't been proven yet. It means spending money and time and resources on something that might not pay off. And when that money belongs to Galino, the margin for error is basically zero. Dale is tough, Dale knows what he's doing, but even the best people in exploration hit dry wells sometimes. And in Season 3, that possibility, that very real possibility of a failed well or a bad field or an unexpected geological problem is going to be hanging over CTT like a storm cloud that never quite breaks. And Boss being with the crew adds another layer to all of this because the people on the ground, the ones actually doing the physical work, they have their own world, their own codes, their own problems, their own dangers. And when the pressure from the top starts to trickle down, when the bosses are stressed and the money is tight and the timeline is slipping, it's always the crew that feels it first. Boss is going to be caught between the world of CTT's leadership and the reality of what's happening out in the field, and that position is never comfortable for anyone. Thomas being in charge of drilling is also something worth watching closely this season, because drilling is where everything either comes together or falls completely apart. You can have the best exploration data in the world, you can have the most experienced crew, you can have every piece of equipment running perfectly, and drilling can still go wrong in ways that nobody predicted. And if drilling goes wrong at CTT, with Galino watching and $44 million on the line, the fallout is going to be catastrophic for everyone involved. Now let's get into something that the trailer hinted at but didn't fully show us, and that's the idea of outside threats. Because CTT is not going to be operating in a vacuum this season. The oil business is competitive in a way that most industries aren't even close to. And when a new company comes in with significant funding and the right people and starts making moves, other players in that space notice. They pay attention. And some of them decide very quickly that it would be better to eliminate the competition before it gets too strong, rather than wait and see what happens. Tommy has made enemies over the years. That comes with the territory when you're as effective as he is at what he does. People who felt outmaneuvered by him, people who lost deals because of him, people who simply don't like the idea of him having his own seat at the table instead of just managing someone else's problems. And Season 3 looks like it's going to bring some of those enemies back into the picture at the worst possible time. Because that's how this show works. It never lets you get comfortable. Just when you think a character has found solid ground, something comes along to shift it underneath them. And Tommy finding solid ground by starting CTT is exactly the kind of thing that's going to invite that kind of disruption. The trailer also gave us something really interesting in terms of the visual language it used around Tommy specifically. There were several shots of him alone, away from the office, away from the crew, just standing somewhere thinking. And in a show like Landman, those quiet moments are never actually quiet. They're the moments where a character is making a decision that's going to change everything. And the fact that the trailer showed us Tommy in those moments multiple times tells us something very specific. It tells us that Season 3 is going to